Hi everybody, I'm Jordan Rolfus from Beagle Rampant Productions, and we are continuing our Romance Month celebration of love stories from around the world, and we have a particularly interesting one for you guys this week because it actually happened, and not only that, it actually happened in my own hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio in the United States. But before we jump into all that, I'm going to ask you guys a quick question. Do you enjoy the logo that we use for Beagle Rampant Productions? It was designed by a local photographer, historian, and graphic designer, all-around Renaissance man, Mr. Doug Weise, and he is actually featured in another Beagle Rampant Productions video, our Cincinnati Theater's presentation video. He actually took the still images for this location that you're going to see in this video today, and he always does an amazing job with photography and graphic design, and we're very proud to have him as a part of the team. I don't know if he officially knows that he's part of the team, but he is, and if you're watching, Doug, you are a part of the team, and we appreciate all the good stuff you do, and we definitely enjoy these amazing photographs for this location. The location is the Shoenberger Castle, and our love story this week is going to involve the real-life tragedy and romance of George and Sarah Shoenberger. George Shoenberger was born in Pennsylvania in the year 1809, and he was the son of an iron producer, an iron manufacturer. And of course, George's father wanted him to go ahead and get involved in the business a little bit there. In Pennsylvania, George would meet a young lady named Sarah Hamilton, who was born in 1815, the same year that the War of 1812 ended, so a little post-war birthday celebration there. And in the year 1835, George and Sarah were married, and it was ultimately decided that George and Sarah should move out to Cincinnati to help expand his father's iron manufacturing business, and Cincinnati was a good fledgling market at that time, because we still had quite a bit of the river traffic. The river and the steamboat was still a major area of commerce and economic growth and development, you know, before the days of the railroad. Thomas the Tank Engine, you suck and I hate you! But that's a different tirade to go ahead and have. But George and Sarah Shoenberger moved over to Cincinnati and started their family and their happily married life together. But this happily married life would not be entirely happy. There would be quite a few punctuations of sadness and tragedy. They would eventually have 5 children: William, who was born in 1836, Sally, who was born in 1839, Mary, who was born in 1840, and Jane, who was born in 1845. Little Mary and little Jane would only live to the ages of 7 and 6, respectively. And then they would have one other son in 1848 named Peter. Ultimately, George Shoenberger would live to see the deaths of 4 of his 5 children, and Sarah would see the deaths of little Mary and little Jane. So we had childhood deaths very early on in the Shoenberger family, so there is that heavy, heartbreaking tragedy so early on in their what should be happily married lives. But while they mourned Mary and Jane appropriately and definitely reverently venerated their loss, George and Sarah tried to keep everything as happy and as positive within the family as they could, and they did a pretty decent job of doing that. Of course, George was an iron producer, and throughout the 1840s and 1850s, people didn't really think that the northern part of the United States and the southern part of the United States would go ahead and go to war. But people like the Shoenbergers knew this is going to get real. Things are going to get really, really messy with this whole affair, so things like iron are going to become a very precious commodity, and sure enough, iron did become a very precious commodity during the time of the Civil War. The United States government needed quite a bit of iron, and especially in the area of Cincinnati. We are a northern city, we're part of the Union, but we're located right on the Mason-Dixon line. Kentucky, while a slave-holding state, did try to remain neutral as they could, but they were definitely Confederate sympathizers, and while there was never any actual battle that was fought in Cincinnati, there were quite a few raids and attacks from the South. This was a good target for the Confederacy. And, of course, the iron production of the Shoenberger families proved to be really, really profitable. So, in 1867, the now millionaires, I wonder, would it translate into billionaires when you adjusted for inflation? I'm not exactly sure of my facts and figures on that one, but they got wealthy after the Civil War because there was a huge demand for iron from the U.S. government. In 1867, the Shoenberger family eventually hired Cincinnati architect James Key Wilson, who designed the wonderful Plum Street Synagogue. They hired him to go ahead and design their Gothic Revival-style mansion, and you can see that puppy from almost anywhere in the city. If you go down the hill, Cincinnati's kind of shaped like a bowl, so all the major city stuff is kind of like at the bottom of the bowl, but you can totally see the Shoenberger Castle from as you're going down to the bottom of the bowl. It's real easy to notice, and it's real beautiful. You can look up and be like, huh, well, that's a masterpiece. And Laura Croft fell down. Oh no, we'll get her later. And tragedy would eventually go ahead and befall the Shoenberger family once again. In 1881, George's beloved wife Sarah would eventually pass away, and this definitely devastated George. This was a huge grief-filled burden that weighed upon George's soul, and it was very difficult for him to move forward and go on from this, but eventually he just couldn't stand the intense loneliness. So 2 years later, George would remarry a young lady named Ella Beatty, and the two definitely loved and respected each other, and there was a lot of true feelings of love and passion between the two, but there was also a great deal of veneration and respect for the fallen matriarch Sarah. And George was still couldn't get over the loss of his beloved Sarah, so ultimately he had a beautiful tower added on to his already amazing Gothic Revival-style mansion, and this tower has a perfect view of the Spring Grove Cemetery where his beloved Sarah was buried. And George and Ella both venerated and respected the fallen matriarch while still having their own loving and happy relationship. In 1883, George Shoenberger himself would pass away, and he would be laid next to his beloved wife Sarah, and Ella Beatty would eventually go ahead and remarry the Canadian composer Charles Harris, and once again there would be a lot of love and devotion between the two, but also a bit of respect and veneration to Mr. Shoenberger. And the Shoenberger Castle today is now a retirement community. Cincinnati is filled with a lot of random castles, and they're either government buildings or retirement communities. That's how Cincinnati does with our castles. You see a castle in Cincinnati, it's either going to be a government building or a retirement community. And that is the tragic yet loving and devoted story of George and Sarah Shoenberger. Oftentimes it seems that love and tragedy are in fact necessarily correlated, and that certainly was the case here. The family dealt with so many heart-shattering losses, but they never lost sight of what was important, which was true love, respect, and veneration, and cherishing of one another. So, that concludes our story of the Shoenberger Castle. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought of our story from my own beautiful hometown here. I always love hearing from you guys. Sometimes it gets to me, when I look at my subscriber number and I'm like, ooh, I haven't even broken 50 yet. Why do I do this? I know exactly why I do this. I do this for the best fans that any YouTuber could ever hope to have. You guys really are the best fans any internet person thing could ever hope to have, and I really appreciate all of the support and all of the encouragement that you guys give me. So go ahead, click that like button, click that subscribe button, go ahead and toss me some comments, let me know what you thought about our little story here. And of course, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Jordan Von Beagle, JORNVONBEAGLE, because Beagles are awesome. We love ourselves some Beagles. So, I'm Jordan Rolfus from Beagle Rampant Productions. You guys are the best fans any YouTuber could ever hope to have, and we will see you next time with whatever bit of craziness we're gonna do on this channel.